Pam Ewing opens the shower door and finds her dead husband standing beneath the water. Bobby smiles, alive and ordinary, while she stares at the impossible. Viewers had watched his funeral, watched the Ewing family grieve, watched Pam try to build a future without him, and watched an entire season move forward from the loss. Now one morning has erased all of it. Bobby's death was a dream. The scene is one of television's most famous reversals because it solved a real production crisis by creating a permanent argument about consequence. Dallas wanted Patrick Duffy back. The only path required the series to deny a year of its own story. We will return to why Bobby left, why he returned, and what the dream cost. First, we need to return to South Fork before J.R. Ewing controlled it, when Dallas was supposed to be the story of two young people marrying into an old family war. David Jacobs conceived Dallas around the collision between the Ewings and the Barneses. Bobby Ewing, the younger son of a wealthy Texas oil family, married Pamela Barnes, daughter of the man who believed the Ewing fortune had been stolen from him. Their love joined two names that had organized themselves around resentment. The original dramatic question was intimate. Could Bobby and Pam build a marriage inside a house where nearly every room contained evidence of the feud? South Fork made that pressure physical. The Ewing family lived together on the ranch despite possessing enough money to avoid one another. Jock and Miss Ellie represented the founding marriage. Their sons carried different versions of the legacy. J.R. ran the oil business, Bobby returned with the enemy's daughter, and Gary's absence revealed damage no one wanted to discuss. Wives, parents, workers, rivals, and lovers moved through a home where business and family could not be separated. The first version of Dallas was a limited series, smaller and rougher than the phenomenon it became. The Texas setting was not polished into pure luxury. Heat, dust, cattle, offices, drilling, and family meals shared the frame. Larry Hagman later valued that rawness and resisted attempts to make the show resemble a smoother imitation of Dynasty. Dallas needed wealth, but it also needed the smell of work and old injury beneath it. Patrick Duffy came to Bobby after the cancellation of Man from Atlantis. In retrospective interviews, he described approaching the opportunity with less calculation than its importance would suggest. Bobby could easily have been temporary, a romantic bridge into the family rather than its permanent conscience. The character survived because Duffy's steadiness gave the increasingly ruthless world someone worth returning to. Victoria Principal played Pam as both a new bride and a Barnes entering Ewing territory. She loved Bobby, but love did not erase loyalty to her brother Cliff or the history she had inherited. Every Ewing victory could deepen Barnes' humiliation. Every move by Cliff could place Bobby in the middle. Pam was not simply an outsider learning to enjoy wealth. She was living proof that the two families' account of the past could not both remain unchallenged. Jim Davis gave Jock Ewing the authority of a founder who believed hard decisions had built everything around him. Barbara Bell Geddes made Miss Ellie the emotional and territorial center. South Fork came through her family, and her attachment to the land often carried more moral force than the corporate battles of Ewing Oil. Their marriage contained affection, secrecy, generational power, and the unspoken knowledge that the sons were still competing for judgment. Linda Gray's Sue Ellen was initially given so little dialogue that her audition had to demonstrate how she could sustain a scene through one side of a telephone call. The thin conception suggested a decorative wife for J.R. Gray found the trapped person inside it. Sue Ellen's silence became watchfulness, her poise became armor, and her drinking became a visible response to a marriage organized around humiliation. Then there was J.R. Hagman, had already been known as the amiable Major Nelson on I Dream of Jeannie. Dallas gave him a darker instrument. J.R. was the eldest son who believed protecting Ewing Oil justified almost anything, especially when protection also increased his control. He lied as naturally as other people greeted one another, but Hagman played the pleasure of the lie. J.R. wanted to win and wanted his opponent to know he had enjoyed the process. He was not originally positioned as the entire center of the series. The early episodes belonged to the Bobby and Pam conflict. Hagman's performance altered the balance. Writers discovered that every relationship became more volatile when J.R. entered it. Ratings strengthened as the series leaned into his schemes. A character designed as a family antagonist became the gravitational force of Dallas. The transformation did not make Bobby less important. It made the brothers a governing contrast. JR believed the family survived through domination, secrecy, and control of the business. Bobby believed the Ewing name could be honorable if its power were used with restraint. Each man could accuse the other of endangering what Jock built. Their love made the rivalry harder because victory could never be clean. Cliff Barnes supplied another mirror. Ken Kercheval played him as the son who had inherited Digger Barnes's grievance and converted it into a career. Cliff could be idealistic, opportunistic, principled, jealous, effective, and self-defeating, sometimes within the same storyline. He wanted justice for his family and the satisfaction of defeating JR personally. The motives became impossible to separate. Pam's position between Bobby and Cliff prevented the feud from remaining a contest between men. Every escalation entered her marriage. She could recognize JR's cruelty without accepting Cliff's obsession. She could defend the Barneses and still see how resentment damaged them. Her presence forced Dallas to remember that family warfare turns people into territory. Lucy Ewing represented another consequence. As Gary and Valine's daughter, she had been raised at South Fork after the family broke her parents apart. Charlene Tilton played Lucy as rebellious, manipulative, lonely, and determined to use the freedoms wealth granted. The adults could dismiss her behavior while avoiding the family choices that had created it. Gary's return revealed how little South Fork protected the son least suited to its competition. Ted Shackelford's character struggled with alcoholism and the judgment attached to being Jock's perceived weak son. Joan Van Ark's Valine carried the pain of being driven away and separated from Lucy. Their story eventually expanded into Knots Landing, but its origin belonged to Dallas and the damage of Ewing belonging. Dallas shifted from short seasonal storytelling into a continuing primetime serial. Cliffhangers became a way of converting family conflict into national appointment viewing. Affairs, pregnancies, business takeovers, accidents, missing relatives, and hidden parentage kept the story moving, but the best turns always changed power inside a relationship. Sue Ellen's evolution became one of the strongest. JR treated her as an accessory, pursued other women, manipulated her medical care, and used their son as leverage. She turned to alcohol and to Cliff, creating uncertainty around the baby's paternity. The plot could have reduced her to a cautionary figure. Gray's performance insisted on the intelligence and anger surviving beneath addiction. The birth of John Ross intensified every claim. A child could be loved, weaponized, inherited, and displayed. JR wanted an heir, Sue Ellen wanted a reason to reclaim herself, and the family wanted stability without confronting the marriage's violence. Dallas understood that dynastic families experience children as both people and future control. JR's schemes spread beyond the family. He manipulated oil deals, foreign politics, marriages, careers, and reputations. The specifics could become elaborate, but the dramatic pattern was clear. He found the pressure point a person believed hidden and used it. The victim might hate him, yet still need something only Ewing oil could provide. Hagman kept that cruelty watchable through wit and appetite. JR did not spend every scene announcing evil. He enjoyed breakfast, praised his mother, teased Bobby, flirted, and walked into offices with the assurance that resistance was temporary. A lesser performance could have made the character a repetitive villain. Hagman made confidence itself a weekly event. By the end of the second full season, JR had accumulated enough enemies to make almost everyone a plausible threat. He destroyed marriages, blackmailed associates, betrayed family, and cornered people who lacked his resources. The writers ended the season with JR alone at the office. A figure approached, shots rang out, he collapsed. The production had created the cliffhanger without locking one complete solution. That uncertainty became an advantage. Who Shot JR escaped the program and entered daily conversation. Newspapers, betting, merchandise, talk shows, and international audiences treated a fictional attempted murder like a public investigation. The delay intensified the phenomenon. A performer's strike disrupted production, and Larry Hagman's contract negotiation introduced another real uncertainty. JR could not simply wake and resume business while the actor's future remained unsettled. Hagman understood how much the character had become worth and used the moment to secure a new agreement. The mystery generated suspects because the series had earned them. Sue Ellen had endured years of abuse. Cliff had built his identity around Ewing defeat. Business partners had been sacrificed. Family members had been manipulated. Even people without a motive to kill him could imagine the relief of a world in which JR no longer controlled the next move. Multiple suspect versions protected the secret. When the reveal finally arrived, the shooter was Kristen Shepard, Sue Ellen's sister, and one of JR's lovers. The choice kept the crime intimate and complicated. Kristen had been used, but she was not transformed into a righteous avenger. JR's response again treated truth as leverage rather than moral resolution. The reveal drew an enormous audience and established the primetime cliffhanger as cultural machinery. Later series would ask viewers to spend a summer debating a death, wedding, betrayal, or hidden identity. Dallas demonstrated that serialized television could organize conversation across months, not merely resolve a story each week. Success changed the scale. South Fork became a destination. The cast became internationally recognized. JR's hat and smile became shorthand for American wealth without conscience. The opening theme, split-screen portraits, Dallas skyline, ranch, and highways promised a world large enough for corporate war and intimate enough for a dinner table insult. The theme by Gerald Immel carried grandeur without darkness. Brass and rhythm made oil, cattle, buildings, and faces feel monumental. Each actor's image appeared in a 3-panel arrangement, turning the cast into an event. The sequence did not explain the premise. By then, Dallas itself was the premise. Behind the phenomenon, the series kept changing. Jim Davis became seriously ill and died during the run. Jock's absence had to enter the family without collapsing the authority he represented. The story sent Jock into danger abroad and eventually accepted his death. Miss Ellie and the sons then had to live with a legacy no longer mediated by the man who created it. Jock's will became another battlefield. Even in death, his decisions could force JR and Bobby into competition. The contest for Ewing oil made grief inseparable from business. Each brother believed he was proving which version of the family deserved to continue. Miss Ellie saw that the test threatened the family Jock claimed to protect. Barbara Bel Geddes brought moral authority to those confrontations, but health concerns led to her temporary departure. Donna Reed assumed the role of Miss Ellie for one season, creating a rare and conspicuous recasting at the center of the series. Bel Geddes later returned. The transition demonstrated how closely viewers associated South Fork's emotional legitimacy with a specific performance. Other relationships widened the world. Ray Krebs moved from ranch foreman and former lover of Lucy into recognition as Jock's son, complicating the hierarchy of inheritance. Donna Culver gave Ray a partner with political intelligence and her own ambitions. Their marriage confronted differences in class, education, and expectation that oil company plots could not solve. Jenna Wade returned as a significant part of Bobby's romantic history, played most permanently by Priscilla Beaulieu Presley. Her presence asked whether Bobby could build a life outside Pam while remaining the same moral center. Dallas often treated romance as a corporate merger in emotional form. A marriage could unite families, alter inheritance, or reposition someone inside South Fork. Pam's difficulty having a child and the adoption of Christopher carried particular weight. In a dynasty obsessed with bloodlines, adoption challenged the idea that family legitimacy came only through biology. Christopher's complicated parentage then allowed the old families to project claims onto a child Bobby and Pam understood simply as their son. Sue Ellen's attempts at sobriety and independence moved in cycles because JR's control also moved in cycles. She could leave, gain confidence, establish a professional identity, or find another relationship, then become entangled again through John Ross and the Ewing structure. Repetition was frustrating because abusive systems often repeat. The question was whether Sue Ellen could stop measuring freedom through JR's reaction. Mandy Winger became one of JR's most significant later relationships. Deborah Shelton played her as a woman capable of attracting JR without fitting the exact role he had assigned Sue Ellen. Yet JR's desire rarely escaped possession. Dallas could change the romantic arrangement while preserving the underlying problem. The scale of production increasingly invited comparison with Dynasty. Both series offered wealth, fashion, family warfare, and glamorous cruelty. Larry Hagman believed Dallas lost something when it chased polish rather than its own Texas character. He preferred the humor and roughness that allowed JR to seem like a product of a particular family and industry rather than an interchangeable rich villain. Leonard Katzman had been central to that tone. When creative control shifted and Katzman left, Hagman disliked the direction. He later recalled threatening to leave unless Katzman returned. Patrick Duffy's possible return became part of the same effort to restore the family balance. The changes were not simply backstage politics. They shaped the most controversial story decision Dallas ever made. By then, Duffy had decided to leave. Bobby was killed after pushing Pam out of the path of an oncoming car. The death attacked the one relationship the original premise had built to survive the feud. It also removed the brother who could challenge JR without becoming another JR. The family grieved, Pam broke under the loss, and Dallas attempted to continue. The season without Bobby moved through new romances, business stories, and conflict. Yet the absence altered the geometry of South Fork. JR had opponents, but not the same brother. Pam had stories, but not the marriage that connected every Barnes and Ewing wound. Duffy soon reconsidered. The producers wanted him back, but resurrection in a contemporary family drama required an answer. A secret survival would invalidate the funeral and grief. A look-alike would not restore Bobby. The chosen solution placed the entire season inside Pam's dream. The shower reveal was kept secret with careful production. Viewers saw Bobby and instantly understood the emotional promise before the continuity mechanics arrived. The next season established that events following his death had not occurred. Characters who had changed, left, reconciled, married, suffered, or grown inside the dream returned to earlier positions. The reversal restored Bobby and Pam, returned Katzman's preferred direction, and revived the central brother conflict. It also told viewers that investment in a year of story could be revoked. Some accepted the bargain because the Ewing world felt right again. Others never forgave the series for treating consequence as negotiable. The cost spread beyond Dallas. Knots Landing had acknowledged Bobby's death within its connected world and did not erase its own season. The two series now occupied incompatible continuity. The dream saved one show's emotional center by loosening the shared reality that had once made the spin-off relationship exciting. Within Dallas, Bobby's return did not guarantee permanent restoration. Pam later suffered severe injuries in an accident involving an oil tanker. Believing her condition would burden Bobby and Christopher, she left. Victoria Principal departed the series. The original Romeo and Juliet marriage was broken again, this time without a shower waiting to undo it. Pam's disappearance became one of the show's unresolved wounds. Reports and sightings complicated her fate, but Principal did not return for a final reunion. Bobby continued, eventually forming new relationships, yet the absence reminded viewers that the marriage which launched Dallas had never received a completely satisfying conclusion. The later seasons confronted ordinary long-running series problems at extraordinary scale. Cast members left or returned, business battles repeated with new companies and alliances. Younger characters inherited attention without matching the original chemistry. The show tried to escalate because it had already shot JR, killed Bobby, restored Bobby, and dismantled Ewing Oil more than once. JR remained the indispensable engine. Hagman could still turn a phone call, smile, or private defeat into an event. The character's persistence became both strength and trap. Dallas could not conclude his struggle without losing its most watchable force, but repeating the struggle made every victory temporary. Sue Ellen eventually achieved a more decisive escape. She built independence and left JR with the knowledge that she understood him. Their long relationship had produced some of the series' strongest drama, because Gray and Hagman could make hatred, attraction, dependence, and strategy coexist. Her departure removed another person capable of confronting him as an equal. The original series finale, Conundrum, placed JR at the edge of suicide and used a supernatural visitor to show him a world in which he had never existed. The structure echoed It's a Wonderful Life through a darker lens. Rather than proving that JR had secretly improved every life, the alternate world often suggested others might have escaped his damage. The final sound was a gunshot. Bobby entered and reacted, but viewers did not see a body. Dallas ended on uncertainty about the man whose shooting had once defined television suspense. The ambiguity was thematically neat and emotionally incomplete. JR had again converted his fate into a cliffhanger. Reunion films later answered the immediate question and restored the characters for new battles. JR returns, and War of the Ewings allowed familiar faces, businesses, and grudges to resume. These projects offered continuation rather than a final reckoning. The Ewing structure seemed incapable of remaining settled. A retrospective special gathered cast and memory, proving how much the production story had become part of the appeal. Fans did not only remember who owned Ewing Oil, they remembered Hagman's contract leverage, the secrecy around the shooter, the dream reveal, cast departures, South Fork visits, and the sense that fiction had once occupied public conversation on an enormous scale. The next major revival chose continuation rather than remake. A new Dallas returned to television with John Ross and Christopher as the younger generation, while JR, Bobby, and Sue Ellen remained active. The choice respected the central idea that inheritance is not background, it is the story. Josh Henderson's John Ross wanted to prove himself as JR's son, carrying the hunger for oil and recognition. Jesse Metcalf's Christopher reflected Bobby's interest in responsibility and alternative energy. The cousins repeated the old brother conflict without being exact copies. Their fathers were present to see what had been transmitted. Linda Gray gave the older Sue Ellen authority earned from survival. Patrick Duffy's Bobby remained tied to South Fork and family responsibility. Larry Hagman returned with less physical force but undiminished cunning. JR's age did not make him gentle. It made every remaining move feel like a legacy decision. Hagman died during the continuation's production. This time, Dallas could not protect itself with ambiguity, recasting, or a dream. The series created a funeral for JR and another mystery around his final plan. The character who had consumed the original premise became the absence organizing the new generation. JR's last scheme reached beyond death, using his own fate to protect the family and defeat an enemy. The device was unmistakably Dallas, love expressed through manipulation, sacrifice hidden inside strategy, and grief converted into business. It allowed the series to honor the villain without pretending he had become a different man. The continuation ended after several seasons without resolving every thread. Once again, Dallas stopped rather than concluded. The pattern may seem like failure, but closure was always difficult for a story built on dynastic repetition. Every settlement creates an heir with a grievance. Every marriage connects another family. Every will turns love into allocation. What changed television was not only the size of who shot JR, it was the way Dallas taught viewers to carry story between broadcasts. A scene on Friday could become conversation for months. Promotional secrecy, cast contracts, production delay, and narrative mystery fused into one event. The audience was not merely watching the Ewings, it was waiting with them. The series also changed the villain's place in continuing drama. JR did not need redemption to remain central. He could be funny, affectionate toward Miss Ellie, loyal to the idea of family, and ruthless toward actual family members. Complexity did not erase responsibility. It explained why people who knew him best kept allowing another conversation. Bobby was equally essential because decency required dramatic strength. He was not interesting simply because he was nicer. He could make mistakes, seek control, and participate in Ewing power. His importance came from believing the name could mean something other than victory. Without him, JR's world lost its internal argument. Pam and Sue Ellen revealed the price of that argument. Pam entered South Fork carrying a rival history and discovered that love could not make the house neutral. Sue Ellen entered as the perfect wife and discovered that status could become confinement. Both women fought to define themselves outside the uses the Ewing men assigned them. Miss Ellie represented the land beneath the company. Jock and his sons could treat Ewing Oil as the family legacy, but South Fork came through her. Her grief when the men endangered the ranch showed a different inheritance, one based on stewardship rather than conquest. Dallas was strongest when those two definitions of family occupied the same room. That is why the dream reveal remains both indefensible and understandable. Bobby's death had removed the person connecting those arguments. Restoring him repaired the series' shape. Erasing the season damaged the audience's trust. Dallas chose the family it needed over the continuity it had created, exactly as a Ewing might. The decision also reveals how primetime serials depend on contracts and chemistry as much as outlines. A daily soap can recast and continue because volume is part of the form. Dallas built major events around the public identity of its performers. Bobby was not only a function named Good Brother, he was Patrick Duffy's calm opposite Larry Hagman. Restoring the function without the actor would not have restored the argument. The same truth explains why JR's contract negotiation became part of the shooting phenomenon. The mystery was fictional, but the possibility of losing Hagman was industrially real. Audience speculation crossed the boundary between character fate and actor leverage. Dallas became event television because the story outside the frame appeared to affect the story inside it. Hagman understood JR as larger than a villain and protected the humor he considered essential. He could enter a scene already enjoying the maneuver. When another character defeated him, anger arrived with wounded pride rather than abstract evil. The pleasure of watching him lose depended on how visibly he had expected to win. His relationship with Miss Ellie exposed the child inside the executive. JR could manipulate nearly anyone, but his mother's disappointment touched an identity money could not repair. He wanted to be Jock's true heir and Miss Ellie's beloved son at the same time. The methods used to claim one repeatedly endangered the other. Jock's approval created a similar wound. JR had spent years beside the business and believed sacrifice entitled him to control. Bobby could leave, return with Pam, and still receive moral regard. From JR's perspective, Bobby enjoyed the luxury of goodness because the eldest son had already performed the necessary ruthlessness. That belief did not excuse JR, but it made the brother conflict sustainable. He could interpret every objection as ingratitude for the work protecting the family. Bobby could interpret every secret as corruption of the name. Each man thought the other enjoyed a privilege made possible by his own burden. Gary revealed the cost of accepting Jock's standard completely. He lacked the appetite for combat and was treated as weak until distance became survival. Valine's exclusion and Lucy's separation showed the family enforcing unity by breaking a smaller family apart. Knots Landing could then explore what happened when Gary and Val tried to build a life outside South Fork's scale. Lucy remained behind as evidence. Her defiance, romances, and demands for attention were not disconnected teenage plots. She had been raised among adults who spoke of family loyalty after removing her parents. Her privilege did not eliminate abandonment. It gave the abandonment better surroundings. Ray Krebs' discovery that Jock was his father created another test of blood and status. Ray had already earned a place through work, loyalty, and knowledge of the ranch. Biological recognition could elevate him while also forcing the legitimate sons to confront how selectively the family applied its rules. Donna's partnership with Ray challenged the belief that masculine worth required oil company competition. She possessed political and intellectual authority and could imagine a public life beyond South Fork. Their differences became difficult not because one person was clearly wrong, but because each future demanded a different understanding of partnership. The women of Dallas often carried the emotional consequences of business plots described as male war. A deal could lead to blackmail, a marriage bargain, a custody threat, or public scandal. The series sometimes used women as pieces in those games, yet its strongest actresses turned the assigned position into a point of view on the whole structure. Sue Ellen's gaze is one of the clearest examples. In early scenes, she could watch JR charm a room while allowing almost no reaction to escape. Gray made restraint active. When the control broke through alcohol, anger, or confession, viewers understood that the eruption had been accumulating long before the script granted her space. Her relationship with Cliff was never a simple escape. Cliff could care for her and still use the connection against JR. Sue Ellen could seek tenderness and still recognize that being desired by JR's enemy did not create an independent identity. Dallas repeatedly placed liberation inside another man's strategy, then let Gray expose the trap. The uncertainty over John Ross's paternity concentrated those tensions in a child. JR treated paternity as a claim to dynasty. Cliff treated it as possible vindication. Sue Ellen faced a body and future being argued over by the same rivalry that had already consumed her marriage. Her effort to protect her son was also an effort to reclaim authorship of her life. Pam's conflicts over motherhood carried a different history. Barnes and Ewing blood had already made her marriage contested. Difficulty conceiving appeared to threaten her place inside a family obsessed with heirs. Adoption allowed Bobby and Pam to define parenthood through care, while later revelations tried to drag Christopher back into the old logic of possession. Christopher and John Ross embodied the future before the continuation made that explicit. One entered the family through Bobby and Pam's choice. The other carried JR and Sue Ellen's dynastic conflict. Both were loved, and both were surrounded by adults prepared to turn love into a legal or corporate advantage. The series' production design made such conflicts legible. Ewing oil offices were spaces of polished control, where a closed door could hide a betrayal. South Fork rooms were shared and porous, making private conflict visible to family. The ranch exterior offered grandeur and the threat that any corporate decision might reach the land. Meals were especially dangerous. The Ewings gathered under the performance of family routine while holding information that could rearrange the table. Breakfast might contain a business provocation before coffee. Dinner might force a lover, rival, or estranged relative into polite conversation. The table preserved family identity and provided the arena in which it was attacked. The office telephone performed another kind of drama. JR could set a scheme in motion with a calm call, then smile before the audience knew the full consequence. Cliff could receive news that turned apparent victory into humiliation. Long before mobile screens made communication visual, Dallas made listening to one side of a call suspenseful. Location filming in the Texas landscape helped separate the show from series that imitated its wealth. Oil fields connected fortune to extraction. Cattle and ranch work connected the Ewing name to labor older than the company. Dallas skyscrapers connected family rivalry to a modern city growing around energy money. South Fork itself changed in the earliest production period before the familiar ranch became fixed. Once established, the exterior developed the authority of a real family seat. Visitors came to see it because the building appeared to contain the arguments they remembered. Architecture became a cast member through repetition. Costume carried character strategy. JR's hat and suits blended ranch identity with executive command. Sue Ellen's elegance projected control even when her private life had collapsed. Pam's clothing could mark her movement between Barnes' outsider, Ewing wife, and independent professional. The spectacle of wealth remained tied to how each person wanted to be read. The split-screen opening portraits reinforced that reading. No single face occupied the entire frame because Dallas sold an ensemble, even after JR became dominant. Each performer appeared in several expressions or actions at once. The design suggested that public identity, private reaction, and dramatic role were always competing. Season endings became the series' largest ritual after the shooting. Fire, accident, disappearance, death, and betrayal promised that no summer would leave the family stable. Cliffhangers worked when they emerged from existing pressure. They failed when scale replaced consequence. The series' long decline partly reflects how difficult it became to surprise an audience after defining the form. The shooting had been perfect because it was simple. One victim, 2 shots, many enemies. The question could be repeated in a headline and understood by someone who had never watched. Later twists often required more continuity. Cultural scale decreases when the setup cannot fit inside ordinary conversation. Bobby's death came close because viewers understood the loss immediately. He saved Pam and was struck by the car. The production reason was equally legible. Duffy was leaving. Grief could organize an entire season because every Ewing relationship had depended on Bobby's position. The dream reveal was also simple enough to become shorthand, though the shorthand often distorts it. Pam did not dream the entire series. One season was removed from the main continuity. That distinction matters because the reversal was drastic without making every earlier relationship meaningless. Viewers who enjoyed the restored configuration could accept the cost pragmatically. Television is a continuing collaboration, and the return of a central performer created years of additional stories. Viewers who rejected it were defending another principle. If a show asks an audience to grieve, the grief should remain part of reality. Both reactions are valid because serial storytelling is a trust relationship. Dallas asked viewers to believe that consequences accumulated. It also asked them to accept that the family ensemble mattered more than 1 year of accumulation. The argument persists because the series made both promises powerfully. Pam's later departure showed the limit of repeating the same solution. Another dream could not restore her without turning consequence into parody. The writers used physical injury, fear, and disappearance, but the absence never gained the decisive emotional closure Bobby's death had received. A character central to the original premise faded into reports. That incompleteness affected Bobby's later romances. New partners could be compelling, yet viewers carried the knowledge that Pam had not received a final shared scene capable of ending the marriage. Long-running television often discovers that a beloved pairing can remain present through absence, making every replacement relationship answer a question it did not create. The original finale's supernatural visitor, Adam, gave Dallas permission to examine JR outside ordinary continuity. The alternate lives did not become a season the audience had to accept. They were a judgment. JR saw consequences and possibilities without gaining a conventional redemption. The gunshot at the end deliberately echoed the series' defining cliffhanger, but the emotional direction had reversed. Earlier, everyone else might have wanted to shoot JR. Now JR might have turned the weapon on himself. The man who controlled other people's futures confronted a future he could not imagine controlling. The reunion films converted that abyss back into plot. JR survived and resumed maneuvering. For viewers seeking emotional finality, the escape could feel familiar in both good and bad ways. Dallas remained convinced that its most important character should always receive another move. The continuation found a more powerful answer through Hagman's death. JR could no longer return physically, so the writers made planning itself his afterlife. Letters, secrets, allies, and one final strategy allowed him to affect the family. The character remained active through the very behavior that had defined him. His funeral also allowed the performers to mourn both JR and Hagman. Duffy, Gray, and the returning cast carried decades of shared work into scenes that did not need to manufacture history. The continuation justified itself in that moment by providing an ending the original series could never have written. The younger generation sometimes struggled against that history. John Ross and Christopher were compelling when their conflict revealed what the older men had taught them. They were less distinctive when repeating oil battles without a new moral frame. Inheritance is dramatically rich only if the heir can choose whether to repeat it. Sue Ellen's older self offered one answer. She had survived addiction, public judgment, and JR's control. Her authority did not come from defeating him in one final contest. It came from remaining after the relationship ceased to define every decision. Gray could play grief for Hagman alongside clarity about JR. Bobby's older self offered another. He still wanted South Fork to represent family rather than conquest, but age had not made that responsibility easy. Protecting the ranch could become its own form of control. The continuation allowed the good brother to discover that moral certainty can harden too. The cancellation of the continuation left a new cliffhanger and reinforced the franchise's strange inability to stop cleanly. Dallas repeatedly promised that next season would determine ownership, guilt, marriage, or revenge. When no next season arrived, unresolved emotion became part of the brand. That may be more honest than a perfect family portrait. The Ewings cannot be permanently solved because the source of conflict is inheritance itself. Land, money, memory, marriage, and resentment pass forward together. Removing one secret leaves the structure capable of producing another. International popularity widened the meaning of that structure. Viewers far from Texas recognized family businesses, favored children, public respectability, private injury, and the way wealth magnifies conflicts it cannot resolve. The cowboy hats and oil fields were specific. The struggle over who represents the family was universal. JR became a symbol because he expressed acquisitive power without shame. Audiences could hate him, admire the performance, and enjoy the fantasy of saying what polite people conceal. The smile gave permission to anticipate the scheme while preserving the desire to see it fail. The show around him was not a simple celebration of money. Wealth created access and spectacle, but it did not create safety. South Fork residents could not buy a peaceful breakfast. Ewing Oil could secure influence and still leave its owners afraid of one another. The larger the empire grew, the more personal every threat became. Dallas therefore belongs in television history not only as a soap about rich Texans. It is a study of a family unable to distinguish love from control. Jock builds, Miss Ellie preserves, JR conquers, Bobby repairs, Pam crosses the border, Sue Ellen survives the display, Cliff demands repayment. Their actions differ, but each asks who has the right to define the family story. The Barnes feud ensures that no definition begins at zero. Digger believed Jock had taken more than a business advantage. His children inherited a story in which Ewing prosperity was evidence of Barnes' injury. Jock's sons inherited a story in which the fortune proved their father's courage. Every new deal occurred on top of incompatible origin myths. Pam and Bobby's marriage was radical within that world because it treated love as permission to stop inheriting the feud. The families answered by making the marriage carry it. Pam could not enter South Fork as only Bobby's wife. Bobby could not support her without appearing to weaken Ewing loyalty. The private relationship became a referendum no couple could win permanently. Cliff's tragedy is that legitimate grievance repeatedly becomes appetite for JR's humiliation. He can expose wrongdoing and still lose moral authority through obsession. JR benefits from that collapse because an enemy who overreaches makes Ewing ruthlessness appear defensive. The rivalry also creates a class performance. Cliff can present himself as the outsider confronting entrenched wealth, even when he gains power and begins using similar methods. JR can present himself as the steward of jobs and family, even when protecting the company means sacrificing people. Each needs the other as proof of his chosen identity. Women are asked to mediate the consequences. Pam must translate Barnes' pain to the Ewings. Sue Ellen must make JR's public life appear stable. Miss Ellie must convert male competition back into family. Donna must explain ambition in a marriage that expects different roles. Their labor is emotional infrastructure rarely named as power. When that infrastructure fails, men call the result betrayal or instability rather than asking what had been demanded. Sue Ellen's drinking becomes a scandal for the family, while JR's humiliation of her remains business as usual. Pam's departure becomes a wound for Bobby, while the pressures that made departure imaginable continue. Dallas could recognize those contradictions and still repeat them for drama. A serial depends on characters returning to unresolved behavior. Growth must be real enough to reward attention and incomplete enough to produce next season. The Ewings became ideal serial characters because family history made relapse look like loyalty. Even JR's most vulnerable moments rarely produce permanent reform. He may fear losing John Ross, grieve Jock, seek Miss Ellie's approval, or recognize Bobby's value. The feeling is genuine. Then control reasserts itself because he interprets love as another reason he must win. Bobby's repairs are also temporary because he remains inside the power structure. He can reject JR's method while benefiting from Ewing wealth and authority. His decency matters, but Dallas never lets decency float above material inheritance. Bobby must decide what to do with power, not merely whether to possess it. The Dream season magnifies that dilemma at the level of authorship. The series possessed the power to restore its preferred family and used it. Viewers were placed in the position of everyone affected by a Ewing decision, grateful for what returned and angry about what had been erased. That may explain why the reveal remains more emotionally alive than many carefully logical twists. It asks what an audience will forgive to recover a beloved relationship. The answer is divided because affection and narrative trust are different commitments. Dallas forced viewers to choose which one mattered more. The later continuation understood the value of making inheritance explicit. John Ross did not simply imitate JR because the franchise needed another villain. He had grown beneath a name that equated love with succession. Christopher did not simply imitate Bobby. His adoption made belonging a choice he wanted the family to honor. Their conflict suggests that the cycle is not genetic destiny, it is instruction. The younger men can repeat the roles because those roles organize access, praise, resentment, and identity. Breaking the pattern would require imagining family without competition over the same symbols. South Fork remains the most powerful symbol because it appears capable of holding everyone while repeatedly becoming the prize that divides them. Miss Ellie's idea of land as continuity competes with the younger generation's use of it as asset, home, memorial, and leverage. The ranch cannot speak, so every heir claims to speak for it. The television audience became another heir. Viewers carry a preferred version of the family. the cast configuration, marriage, season, owner of Ewing Oil, or person who belonged at South Fork. Revivals must negotiate those claims just as new characters negotiate Jock's will. Nostalgia is inheritance with its own feud. That is why a complete ending has remained elusive. To close Dallas, the story would have to declare one interpretation final. Yet the franchise's deepest promise is that no Ewing settlement remains uncontested. A deed can be challenged, a will revised, a marriage broken, a death reversed, and a final plan opened after the planner is gone. If you remember the night the world waited for JR's attacker, tell us which Dallas moment kept you talking after the credits. Was it the shooting, Bobby's death, the shower, Pam's departure, JR's final gunshot, or his last plan? Subscribe to The Long Rewind for complete stories of the television classics that defined the 70s and 80s. Pam opened the shower door and saw a husband returned from death. The impossible image contains the whole story of Dallas. Love and power had built a world so compelling that television could not bear to lose its center. The series would rewrite time, divide continuity, and risk ridicule to put Bobby back at South Fork. JR taught Dallas that winning could justify almost anything. In its most famous reversal, the show proved it had learned from him.